In this video, we're going to be going step by step through the Week 0 Advanced CAD Guide, where we will be building a miniature version of the Empire State Building. For access to these slides, simply click on the link in the description below. You should do this Advanced CAD Guide if you're already familiar with Inventor, or if you've already done the first CAD Guide and are still looking for a bit of a challenge. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. So let's go ahead and open it part just as before with the first CAD guide. Now, where can we put sketches? Generally, when we start a new sketch for the first time, you'll be able to see these planes. But as we move through this exercise, you'll be able to see that we can put sketches on basically any kind of flat geometry that we've created. And you'll see if you look at this version of the Empire State Building that it's mostly a series of stacked rectangular extrusions, and it makes it a perfect challenge for this week's lesson. So we're going to start by making some squares. So I'm going to be using the rectangle command, and I'm going to make the first square a 0.2 by 0.2 inch. And I can type in this dimension here and then use the tab key to go to the other dimension to edit, and then enter key to enter and create it fully. Now, instead of creating 3 more boxes the same way, I'm going to use a different feature. I'm going to use the mirror. So from mirror, all you have to do is select what you want to mirror and then select a line for it to reflect over. So I'm going to select this whole box and then create the mirror line as this one. And as soon as I hit apply, this box is created. And then I can do the exact same thing and select a new mirror line. And just like that, I have 4 identical boxes that are exactly the correct dimension. And because they're mirrored versions, this dimension will apply to all of them and it's fully constrained. Now, something that I would like to point out that I was using earlier is when I create these boxes by left clicking and dragging, you can see that if I drag to the right, it's red, and to the left, it's green. Now, there is a difference to these. If I drag with a red box, it will only select the entities that are fully enveloped by the box. So if I go all the way over here, the only thing fully encapsulated is this line here. But if I use a green box, it will select everything that this box touches. So if I do make the exact same kind of rectangle here, it selects all these lines instead. This is pretty useful when you want to select a lot of things, or if you want to be very precise, maybe using a red box is exactly what you need. Just a little tip before you keep using Inventor. So now we're going to extrude this sketch. And we'll select all these squares that we made. And we want it to be 1.5 inches. So now, after we've extruded this, I can start a new sketch on this top surface. And so just like before, we're going to be creating some rectangles so we can center in on the origin. And this time it'll be 0.15 by 0.15. And you'll see that I actually missed one of these dimensions by accident. So we'll go ahead and enter that in. And I use the dimension button up here. And then we're going to go ahead and mirror this again. And I can select before I click mirror, or I can select after. Either one doesn't really matter. And again, it's pretty easy. Now, another thing I could have done was used the offset function, which I can point out when we go to a different sketch. And in that case, we would be using project geometry to get the geometry from the edge of this square. But As before, we're going to extrude these. And this time it'll be only 0.4 inches. And just as before, we're going to do it one more time. Alright, so we'll start a sketch. And as I said before, I can use project geometry to show, to get this geometry to show up in my sketch, or I could use the offset to make it a smaller version. I'm not going to do that this time, but you can experiment with it. It depends on how much math you want to do, or how much clicking around you want to do. As you use Inventor and get more comfortable with it, then you'll find that some ways might be easier than others. But I'm going to keep using this mirror function. Okay, so once we finish that, then we can, let's see here, it's 0.2 inches tall. So why did I make this 3 separate extrusions instead of making one sketch with a bunch of squares and then extruding all of them up? Well, if I wanted to edit only one of them, it's really easy to go to this feature tree over to the left and then expand out the different sketch, and I can edit each one from here. So I can edit how tall these extrusions are, or their direction. So if I click edit feature, then I can look at this dialog box again. Or if I click edit sketch, I can edit this sketch again, and it totally ignores everything after it. Which can be very useful, especially when you're working with very complex parts that might not be as simple as just some stacked boxes. But now we're going to do a different little feature. It's still technically an extrusion, but this time we'll be doing a bit of a different procedure. So we'll be clicking on this very specific little plane here. And I will, let's see here. If we look at this box in the slide, you'll see that it's got some very specific measurements. So I'm going to go ahead and create a rectangle in about the general area that I want it. And we'll make the width, let's see here, 0.05. And then we will dimension these lines together as 0.01. And then I will go ahead and escape out of the dimension, and then I'll just mirror this over. Now, if you look really closely at this slide, which again, if you are trying to look at these, at the slides themselves, you can access the link in the description. But if you look really closely, you'll see that this box isn't fully constrained. There is no height dimension, which, if you look at the sketch again, it doesn't really matter what the height is as long as it is longer or long enough to cut through the entire base. So what we'll do is we'll just dimension this and give it some arbitrary but specific measurement. So we'll give it 0.1. And you'll see that if I cut straight down, it's going to cut through all of this material here. And we still need one dimension. Now what dimension is that? Well, what we can do is we can try to drag this around and see what happens. And you'll see that it can go left and right. Now how do we fix that? Well, there are a couple different ways. But here's, let's see here, what can we do? Something we can do is we can try to find the origin. And the origin's right here, but sometimes it's easy to miss. And so we're going to use a little fancy trick where if you click, I believe it's function F7, and you'll be able to cut through any geometry that is on top of the sketch. So if I move in 3D, you'll see that everything that was above gets cut off, and you can see exactly what we want. And so we're going to use a constraint, a vertical axis constraint. Actually, we're sideways, so we want the horizontal constraint. And when we want this line, if you try to create a constraint that already exists, then it will attempt to tell you that it's wrong. So we have to be careful about what point we click. So I was trying to click the line, but it really wanted me to click this point right here. So sometimes if you're trying to do constraints and it doesn't work, maybe it could be the point that you're trying to constrain, and it could also be that you're just missing a constraint and you're not clicking the right thing. So what I like to do is I try to move around my sketch and see what kind of degree of freedom it has before I try making extra constraints. So now that that's fixed and I see that it's fully constrained down here, all we have to do is finish the sketch, extrude, and then click our shape. We have to make sure we zoom in so we can get all of these boxes here. And instead of going up, we want it to be flipped. And when it flips through geometry, it will automatically become a cut. So we want to make it 1.5 inches. And as you can see, it cuts right through this geometry here. Now all we have to do is make the same feature on the other side. But do I really want to do all that work again? And their answer is always no. If you think that there's an easier way to do things on Inventor, it's pretty likely that it is. So instead of using mirror function on your sketch, we can use the mirror function with features. So we're going to click this mirror button up here. We'll click feature, and then we'll choose which plane we want to mirror over. So if you click it, then you'll see that this is the plane that we're going to flip over. If the plane that you want to flip over isn't one of the origin planes, then we can create work planes using this feature up here. But that's something that we'll cover in a later lesson. So once I hit OK, it'll be perfectly mirrored. Something to keep in mind is it's better to mirror features than mirror sketches, because it's easier to edit when you mirror the feature itself and go back and change things later. Sometimes when you use mirror on sketches, it can be difficult to select everything that you want to change, and sometimes the changes don't carry over exactly as you want them. So this time, we're going to make another slight extrusion. And this time we'll make a sketch not on top, but on the side here. And what we'll do is we'll project geometry, and then all I have to do is create a rectangle that starts in this snapped corner and goes over here, and it snaps right in place. And again, I'm not fully constrained. I still have one dimension needed, and we'll see what that is. And you'll see, even though it snapped into place, I can still change this width because I didn't specify it. So again, I'll use this vertical constraint to move it right in place. And then looking at the slide, I see that the extrusion is a distance of 0.02. And as before, I'm going to simply mirror over. Alright, that was pretty easy. Okay, and now we're going to use circles to extrude instead of just rectangles. So we'll go back to starting sketch and go up here. And we need to make a circle on the origin. That's just 0.175. And it's going to be a height of 0.04. And then we'll make another one. Diameter is 0.075. And then it will be 0.1 inches tall. And the last one is going to be really tiny. So we want to be careful about zooming in so that we can easily select what we want. And it's only 0.01 inches in diameter. And a height of 0.3 inches. And we're very close, but we're not there quite yet. We still need a stronger base. So we'll add some corner pieces. So you'll see that we'll be able to have the option, because it's all in one sketch, but we'll be able to have the option of mirroring the sketch or mirroring the feature. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make one sketch and then mirror it 2 times, or mirror the feature 2 times once I've created the extrusion. So we'll take a look at this. We want to project geometry so that we can reference this base here. Sometimes it takes a second to find the exact place where to click, because I can reference any geometry that's above it on this shape. So it's trying to figure out what I want to select. But eventually, if you hover around long enough, you'll find exactly what you're looking for. So now that we've created this reference geometry, then we can create a rectangle. And sometimes the easiest thing to do is to create just a general rectangle that's in about the right vicinity, and make it completely unconstrained, and then dimension from there. So this will be 0.125, or 1/8. This will be 0.075. And then this distance here would be 0.05. And this distance here would be 0.035. Now if I had drawn the rectangle in this space over here, these dimensions wouldn't have worked, because it's trying to, I have to have at least some correct. So if I had made this dimension between these 2 lines 0.035, it would be 0.035 in this direction, which is not what I want. I don't believe you can do negative distances. It's better to create the shape in the correct place to begin with, and then specify from there. Sometimes it's easier to start all over than to try to fix little mistakes, because ultimately, once you get good at using Inventor and get a lot of practice with it, things can come really, really fast. And it's not that big a deal to start over sometimes. So we're going to go ahead and finish the sketch. And I'm going to extrude it. And let's see here, it's going to be 0.3 tall, which is exactly what I have. And then we'll go ahead and mirror the feature. And then I can do it one more time and select multiple features. Something to note, if you accidentally select the wrong feature, you can't unselect or deselect. You just have to cancel and then restart. It's a little bit of a bummer, but again, it's not that big of a deal. Wrong way, this way. All right, and just like that, you've created the Empire State Building. You can click this box here to take a look at it. See you next week.